Hello everyone, Josh here with X, bringing guys and gals some more Cat Fantasy. Today we're going to be going over a full in-depth gear guide. Now I'm going to be using my PTR account. That way I can show you guys a little bit about what more or less end-game gear is going to kind of look like. Something for you guys and gals to kind of strive for when it comes to the global version of the game. Obviously we're only about 2 weeks in, so a lot of you, especially if you're a free-to-play or casual spender, you're probably still really working on your gear quite a bit, and a lot of it's going to be still unfinished. But we're going to be showing you guys and gals kind of how to go about building that gear and getting it to where you want it to be. So with that said, let's go look at one of my units, one of my premier units on the PTR version of game. So let's look at our girl Anya. Our girl Anya, aka Anja on the global side, she's sitting at almost 145,000 power. Now keep in mind, on PTR, we did not have the ability system for several months. So when we actually got the ability system, we couldn't take advantage of it like global can from day one. So me sitting at 20, 22 or whatever level in my cafe, I did not get all those ability upgrades all the way up to that point. They were gone. Didn't get them. So my CP, if this was on global with the same gear setup, my CP would be insanely high right now for this unit. It'd be well over maybe 170, 180k plus, maybe even 200,000. I'm not entirely sure. It would be extremely high. So just to give you guys a little bit of perspective into global getting a little bit of an advantage with that actually over even the PTR version. So what kind of gear would you want to build on a unit like this? So this is Anja. We'll just call her Anja to keep it simple for you global players. The kits are the same. So if we go through the kits, increase the self max HP by 51%, which goes all the way up to 72% for one turn. If you look over here, her skill 1, she does freezing, which is nice. Good little crowd control there. And then she places a shield equal to 33 up to 67% of self max HP to an ally. Lasts for 2 turns. And as you know, when you get a 3-star, you're able to make that shield go for everybody, which is very, very nice. And then her passive is increases all green Pathos allies HP by 25%. This will take effect, blah, 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 blah. So essentially, going by the skill set of this unit, she's scaling to HP. So when we want to gear her up, we want to make sure that we're keeping HP in mind. So if we go over here to her equipment, you also want to think about gear sets first. What kind of gear set's going to be good and beneficial to a unit like this that's giving you shields and scales to HP, etc., etc. You want to give her a gear set that allows her to make her shields a little bit more potent, a little bit more powerful, right? Well, there's 2 different gear sets in the game that kind of work around healing and shield mechanics. One of them's for the caster, and one of them's for those that are getting getting it received to them. The receiver and the caster. Well, since everything is scaling from herself, she's going to be the caster. So we want to use a gear set that gives you the caster's shield increase and healing increase, and that's what she's rocking. Okay, so that's a gear set that she is utilizing right now. Now we need to go into the substats. Look at my substats here. HP across the board. HP across the board, HP across the board, HP across the board. You get the idea. It's just all HP spam. Okay. Now, another thing, PTR for several months, we also didn't have the item from Arena that allows you to actually enhance a stat without re-rolling it, but actually enhancing the stat. So now if I actually went through and spent a lot of time grinding out Arena and played for the next few months, I could probably get all of these HPs up to the reds. Okay. Up to the red, the tier 6, if you will, stat, the red stats. It could get them all the way up to max if I really wanted to go and spend that level of investment. Now, also keep in mind, on the PTR version of the game, I did spend about 70, 80 bucks for the entirety of the time I played. So about almost a year into this account, I took about 3 or 4 months off. So about 8, 9 months in actual play time. And it took me about 3 months to actually get her gear to this point. But again, we didn't have a lot of the quality of life stuff that we have now when we started back then. So things are a little bit easier than they were before. But you get the idea. You want to go through and get the substats that go with the actual unit and their skill set to best benefit them, not only for just the CP value, but for the actual unit's value and usability. What can you do with the hero? So this one's pretty simple. It's Anya. She wants all HP. Sorry, Anja. She wants all HP. So you give her all HP. You don't give her endurance. You don't give her defense. You give her all HP. And because she's going by all HP, her CP is going to be very high because HP is the highest scaling stat in the game. Second would be attack, and then it's defense. and then it just kind of trickles down from there. I believe endurance is next, and then crit rate, crit damage, etc., etc. It just gets lower and lower and lower and more irrelevant to the CP total, but it might not be irrelevant to the unit and what they need to do. So let's look for a more difficult one. Let's go look at Green Echo, my 3-star Green Echo, the paywall unit. She's a little bit different. This is a DPS, but she doesn't want just raw damage. She wants penetration, right? She wants armor pen for global. So if we go in here and look at her gear, it's a little bit more of a different setup. We are rocking her with a pen set, an armor penetration set that you can get from Arena. We got her all leveled up, 5-star gear across the board. And now let's look at her substats. Hers are going to be a little bit different. You're not going to just go for the typical raw damage stats like crit rate, crit damage, attack. You also want to give her penetration or armor pen because that's what her skill set scales to. Okay? So with her, unlike just normal raw damage dealers, we're going to actually be running 4 substats for her, not just 3. So crit rate, crit damage, attack, and armor pen. Now, keep in mind, when you're talking about CP values, obviously attack is going to give you the most CP out of those stats, and all of your damage is going to be scaling from attack originally anyways. However, those modifiers for like the ×2, ×2.5, ×3, etc. for like ultimates and just basic skills, you want to be able to scale to those pretty highly as well. So for Echo scaling to armor pen, we want to make sure that we're getting quite a bit out of her gear. Not only just the set itself, but the substats. So you can see here, we got pen up to 5.7% on that. We have a 2 there, a 2.9 there. If you get the idea, we have several kind of across the board, right? And now with the new items that we have, we can actually go and max all these out eventually and make it even better. So you can see with my particular Echo right now, she's at about 92% penetration. But you don't want to go full penetration, okay? You want to pull out. I'm just joking. You don't want to go full penetration because then you're going to be lacking on attack, and that's a problem. Now, Echo doesn't really need crit rate or crit damage all that much. If you can get some nice rolls on it, it's okay to keep for now. You can be a little bit more picky later on when you have more resources to work with. But, you know, being on global for only 2 weeks, you're not going to be really worrying a lot about that at the moment. You're going to be really focusing on that one particular stat that is really going to benefit you. And for, you know, like Echo or even Haley, penetration or armor pen is going to really be the bread and butter to get the most damage out of her while also stacking some attack as well. Because, again, attack is still the main source of damage, period. You need that damage still to be pulled from that attack stat. Plus, the attack stat is also giving you some nice CP. That way, you're going to be going first in Arena and, of course, in PvE. So you want to find a nice little balance of what works best for you and not be too picky early on. You can be more picky later. So that's kind of, you know, a quick little example of how you can basically gear every hero in the game. Pay attention to the skill set. Pay attention to the gear sets available, and then look at your substats, because that's where most of it's going to be coming from, is your substats. That's where we're going to be really starting to look at how you want to build your particular unit. And not every DPS has to be built the same. Some people might want to go all attack. Maybe some people want to go really hard on crit rate and crit damage. Some people might want to make a blend of the 3. Some people might even want to throw armor pen in there or go full armor pen. It really decides, you know, it really kind of comes down to what your DPS is. And then, again, you translate that same information to your supports, your tanks, etc. Hopefully you guys and gals get the idea. If you need more help, obviously join our Discord in the description below. So that is pretty much more or less what you want to do. And one thing to note when it comes to gear, avoid defense. Do not build with defense. I know that it gives you like the 3rd most CP in the game, but it's probably the worst stat in the game because there's too much units in the meta, both PvE and PvP, that can use armor pen. So your defense isn't going to be all that great. Endurance, however, is a different story. Endurance for like your tanks, for like Red Poppy, for example, or your Minamis, your Red Minamis, your SSR, those are solid. You could build HP and endurance. You're good to go with an endurance set, and that's solid. But please avoid defense. If you're going to build anything on your substats for CP, avoid defense. Go attack or HP or just full HP or full attack. Either or, do not build for defense. It's just by far the worst stat value in the entire game. Even though it gives you good CP, it doesn't give you anything else good. Okay? So, I want to kind of throw that out there. Now, back to equipment. Now, to actually re-roll these substats, right, you're going to have to use these reconfigurators. or recombiners, or recombinators, whatever the hell they're calling them between the versions of the game. Basically, your reroll stat materials, okay? You're going to need these, and you can get them from a few different areas, which we will discuss in today's video. However, you can save yourself a whole lot of heartache, pain and suffering, and RNG by doing this one simple step when it comes to gear. Now, the arena-based gear, you can't do this you can't do this as much. You can still do it to an extent, but it's going to be very limited on how many times you can do it a week, opposed to the gear dungeon. But let's go into an actual gear dungeon and really kind of show you what you really want to do with any gear that's not an arena. Again, you can do this in arena, but it will be limited. But for all other gear, check this out. So we're going to go in here, and you can tell I've not been playing this account for a while. I have so many red dots everywhere. Just ignore the red dots. It's a red dot simulator over here on PTR. Anyway, let's go to the gear dungeon. So let's go ahead and go into the critical rate set, okay? Let's go in here, and let's do a run of 10 on the 6th stage. So we're going to go in here and do this. Now, this also gives you those reroll materials as well, which is nice. The gear dungeon gives you quite a bit of stuff. You know, you get EXP, you get the gear reroll materials, and you get the gear itself. So it's very good value for gear dungeons, especially when they have the gear dungeon events when we start getting those on global. But essentially, what you want to do is when you see this gear here, and then you see these substats, this is what you guys and gals need to start doing. Practice this. I'm preaching it to you. Practice it. I practice it myself. It's so helpful, and it'll save you a ton of pain. Look for 2, not 1, but 2 substats on the gear that you want to build up that you need, and it better be in purple. Make sure it's already at purple, okay? Or you can call it tier 4, whatever you want to call that color. I just call it purple. So you want to look for 2 stats that are in purple that you absolutely can use, okay? So for example, if we're building a crit set, we're looking for stats like attack, crit rate, crit damage, maybe even armor pen. So I want to see 2 of those stats, doesn't matter which 2, just 2 of those stats in purple, or I'm not building up that gear. Because we can already see the substats. They made that change several months ago, and it was a very nice change. So we can see the substats that we want, and if they're not there, we do not touch that piece of gear. It gets salvaged, which will then give us gear enhanced materials, so we can enhance our gear. So right now, all I see on this is an attack stat. Everything else is doo-doo. So I'm not going to build this piece of gear. Let's go up and look through another one. Okay, garbage. Moving along. Okay, we got crit damage. Nothing else. Let's keep going. Nope, those were bad. So that whole batch is getting salvaged. Now, in the first few days of the game, you may be able to be a little bit more lenient with those stats for at least the purple gear. But when you start moving over to the 5-star gear, where it gets a little bit more expensive, you need to start being a little bit more picky in doing this strategy. It will help you tremendously. Trust me. Garbage. Garbage. Let's keep going here. That one's also garbage. Can we find one good piece in today's video? All poop. I'm glad that I don't play this account very much and I have all the stamina. Let's keep going. Garbage. Garbage. That one's also garbage. We got an attack stat, but it's in blue. I mean, if it's a high blue, I guess you could be a little bit lenient on it. But I would rather it be purple. See, like this one here, this one's borderline because it does got high armor pen, like a really high stat. It's in yellow, but it's got a blue attack. But it's like borderline purple. When you start looking at these bars, you're going to start kind of knowing with an eye test. You're going to be able to see kind of where they're leaning towards, like high blue, high purple, low purple. You get the idea because you're going to start noticing when they start to transition between colors. So that pen is actually almost in red. So maybe that'll actually make up for the lack of, the attack not being quite in purple. So I guess you could kind of think from that philosophy as well. And that'll really, that still might be worth investing into. Okay. So I guess there are some exceptions to the rules if you think of it that way. That one's garbage though. That one's got attack. Nothing else, unfortunately. Crit rate, crit damage. Okay. So this one is a prime example of one that you would invest into. We got a high crit rate, a decent crit damage, and then another crit damage there to boot in a penetration, which is low, but still usable for now. The healing boost would be the only thing that we'd have to swap out on that to make this piece very usable right now, without having to use really much materials outside of enhancing and, of course, starring them up. So this is a prime example of what we're looking for here. This is a really good example, in fact. So I'm glad that we were able to see that in today's video. We'll just go through these last couple real quick while we're here, and the rest are doo-doo. So that is essentially what you're going to want to do. And then those are the pieces of gear that you're going to level up. Keep utilizing that strategy. Again, just you want to think logical of it. You don't want to use more resources. You don't want to work harder. You want to work smarter. Save as many resources. Be efficient as possible when you are gearing up your unit. Now, let's talk about some of the areas where you can get some of the stuff that you need for enhancing your gear in case you were not aware. So one area is the grocery. So let's go to the grocery. Let's go to Arena itself. In Rising, you can see here that you get the enhancement materials right there. They're going to cost you 30 coins, and there's a stock of 100, and every one that you purchase has 10 in it. So we can just see how many we can get. We can't get all that many, but we bought 2, and then boom, we have 20. All right, and you want to buy out that whole shop. So this is where I said Arena is very important. We're going to ignore Marine Maverick. She's whatever. She's okay. She's okay. But everyone gets a 2-star Anja for free, so she's not really all that needed. So again, she's whatever. She's there. She's a long-term thing that you can grab. Okay, it's whatever. She's a free-to-play light unit. I know it's enticing. Ignore it. Completely ignore it. Because what we're going to be focused on is going to be grabbing the gear up materials. We're going to be buying these star up 5ers when we need them. And then, of course, you also want to be buying up these blue chip 5s for all 3 colors. You definitely want those. And then eventually, when we get our teams all pretty well set up, we're going to start buying these stabilizers, because these are going to be allowing you to actually take your gear and increase them, the substats, without changing it. It's going to take whatever your substat is and give it an increase on the percentage. The percentage is random. I'm not sure what the ratios are from low to high, but yes, we're going to start doing that weekly with those stabilizers. I probably wouldn't recommend using stabilizers unless your substat is already in red, though, because I'm not going to sit here and pretend like these boosts are going to be massive increases. They're probably going to be small little increments. So if you're trying to take like a green stat or a blue stat all the way up, it's going to take you forever and probably not worth it. You're better off probably just being a little bit more picky later down the road when you got a lot of influx of materials, and then try to re-roll them for a higher percentage, and then use the stabilizers when you get a comfortable amount. So hopefully that makes sense. So we're going to be definitely using that stuff for gear right there. In Coliseum, another big one. On the number 1 shop and the number 2 shop, you're going to be grabbing these enhancement alloys again and again. You're going to try and buy these out always. So make sure you're doing all your Phantom stuff every week. And then in the number 3 shop, this is where you're going to be getting one of your biggest stockpiles of reconfigurators or recombinators or whatever you want to call them. This is where you're going to be, buying those out as well. Do not buy the Startup 5ers from the Phantom shop. You don't need to. There's other areas, especially the core shop, where you're going to be able to get those quite a bit. And then even if you need a few extra, if you absolutely need it, you have the Arena. But again, in the Coliseum, you basically are going to buy those out there, and then buy those out there. And then if you have, whatever extra you have, before you reset the shop, buy out all your summons, okay? And then you reset it, and then rinse and repeat. Just make sure that you're doing the summons last. Get the gear up materials first, then get the pulls. Then reset the shop, rinse and repeat. You're welcome. Okay. In Clan, do not buy these from the Clan. Do not do that. I'm not in a Clan on Global or on PTR no more, because I just don't play very much anymore. But you want to be buying only the strategy points from here. I just want to make that clear, because I know these enhanced materials are in here, but do not buy them from here. You want to buy the strategy points. So make that clear. I thought I'd include that in today's video in case somebody makes that mistake, because you will be in a world of hurt later on when you don't have very many strategy points to work with, because they start getting pretty expensive, and they're also very rewarding for your account overall. So just wanted to kind of make that clear. You can also get those recombinators or whatever from doing your equipment dungeon, which we showed earlier in the video. But yeah, more or less, that's pretty much what you want to do as a free-to-play casual spender. If you're a whale, obviously you can go in there and buy some of those materials from the shop as well if you really wanted to. But if you're a free-to-play casual, do not do that. Do it from the free resource areas only. You're also going to be able to go into different event shops when there's certain events out that allow you to buy gear materials and resources like that. So just definitely keep an eye out, pay attention. But the main thing is, think about the CP value, think about the skill value, and find a good combination, a good compromise to be able to build the gear sets the way you need to for all your units. And this is how you're going to be able to gear up every hero in the game. This is how you're going to be able to get your gear set up the way you want it to and use your resources as wisely as possible. Now, there's other areas in the game as well that you can utilize to try and get some of these things. Like, for one example here in the tower, you can go over here and you can collect your hub supplies, and then boom, you get some gear enhancement materials from here as well. Not very many, but, it's something, right? It's something. So, again, just pay attention to the skill sets, pay attention to the substats, get the right set of gear, Crit rate gear is going to be used quite a bit. The shield and healing set's going to be used quite a bit. And then obviously your armor pen set and your endurance set. Those are going to probably be the 4 sets that you're going to see most use out of overall. Crit damage sometimes, if you have a unit that can scale to crit pretty well or crit damage pretty well, sometimes you can, throw one or the other on there. But that's going to be it for me. I hope that I helped a lot of you out there. I just wanted to keep you guys up to date on, some of the strategies and stuff that I utilize on my own personal account for both, PTR when I played it, and then now, of course, global. And I thought using my PTR account would be a good example because I can show you what kind of somewhat endgame gear looks like and what you can achieve by, just grinding and working on it and paying attention, using your resources wisely, efficiently, and eventually you will get where you want to be gear-wise. And gear is very, very important and crucial to this game because that's where a majority of your CP and your power overall for your units are going to be coming from. So you can have all the stars in the world, but if you don't got good gear, it's not going to matter. So keep that in mind. Hopefully this was very helpful going forward. If it was, you know what to do. Don't forget to like, subscribe, take notifications. Join me in the Discord in the description below as always. And of course, don't forget to follow us on X at XSmedia. And I'll catch you guys and gals in the next one. Until then, peace.